We welcome you into episode number 18 of the best podcast available. We moved on from the draft. It is OTA edition, our final OTA week of 2021 before mandatory minicamp next week, and then a hiatus till training camp at the end of July. I'm Jason Gibbs alongside Andrew Gribble. Coming up on the program today, Anthony Schwartz, Browns third-round pick, wide receiver out of Auburn, will join us to talk about his first 6 weeks with the football team, a little roller coaster talk as well, and a little YouTube channel that he has developed, I should say, over the last few weeks. But we start with OTAs, the team back on the field again this week, Gribbs. A lot of guys back in the building, almost 60 players to be exact. A lot of defensive guys here and some of the fresh faces, including John Johnson III and Troy Hill, Sione Takitaki, the first time we've seen him here this offseason. So nice to get a lot of those guys back into the building. And Case Keenum on the offensive side, throwing the football around. Kaderil Hodge with a nice day in the part that we could see. But another day of work, another week of work here for this football team as guys continue to pour in.
Yeah, and for us today was kind of like you're getting closer and closer to seeing what this defense could look like. I think some key players still not here, but the thing that came into focus for me is really you see Greedy out there, you see Grant Delpit, John Johnson, Troy Hill. That's basically 4 new players in your secondary to go along with Denzel Ward today, who made a nice little play at the end of practice there as well. So that secondary, which received so much needed attention, now kind of coming into focus. And the key thing for them is you just want them to stay healthy and get to the season, because we know that this is a big talent injection that frankly was needed, I think, for the back end of the defense to really make it. So if your offense can build these leads, you feel good that you can protect them after a couple of scares last season with some of those big leads.
Well, and just look no further, Pro Football Focus and their position rankings across the NFL. I'm fairly confident the Browns were not in the top 10 on the back end of this defense at the end of the season. They come in number 3 now, according to Pro Football Focus. And a lot of guys out there making some plays. You talked about Denzel was active. It was good to see Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit with helmets on today and getting a little more work. And Greedy really seems to be getting pretty close to being able to go full go when we have training camp here in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, and it was good to hear from Greedy after practice as well. It just seems like a guy that's been through a lot, and he's ready to kind of compete. I think he's now in a situation that frankly is a little bit different than what he would have faced in 2020. I think 2020 he entered as the likely starter with maybe not as much competition at that spot. This year he's going up against a first round draft pick in Greg Newsome. I think that's going to be a big challenge for him, but something where he's got the pedigree. Also, even though he was a second round pick with the Browns, he definitely was pegged as a potential first round talent with this team. He's got 12 games of starting experience. It's a good player. And I think that if he's back to 100%, that just shows the kind of depth you could have at that outside cornerback position entering the season.
Well, and John Johnson III also made mention of the 3 safeties in the backfield and that defensive scheme that I think Joe Woods wants to imply here in the 2021 season. And we got a few glimpses of some of those guys running around today and what they can and what they can do and what the potential is. And he mentioned it in his meeting with the media after practice. He's pretty excited about what the back end of this defense is looking like after just being here for a few days.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because we all have such high expectations for Grant Delpit. We got to remember, though, this is essentially going to be his rookie season on the field. But he just looks so fluid, so smooth out there as a guy you want in the center field back end of your defense. And then the moments we saw with Ronnie Harrison last year were everything that you wanted to see from that kind of player. So a really good mix of body types and skill sets. And it's just going to be interesting. What if all 3 can stay healthy? How are they deployed? How are they used throughout the year? Because I have to assume John Johnson III isn't coming off the field. So how do you rotate some of those other guys and get all 3 of those guys on the field and really stretch the versatility of this defense?
Nice to see Sione Takitaki as well. Full basically a full complement in that linebacker room. I know Malcolm Smith has been around as well, especially on the virtual side of things. So that room seems to be gelling. Defensive line, a couple of guys out today, but they were here earlier in the week and of course last week. But the defense seems to be moving along, and I know that Baker and a number of the skill guys are working out in Texas. And as Coach politely said, that's out of the realm of my control, or in terms of giving orders or, instructions, things along those lines, coaching the people that are here. But nice to have Case Keenum working with that offense and some of these guys that are trying to get those much needed reps.
Yeah, and I will say you already notice it a little bit out there. It just doesn't look like what it did last year, in that there was just a lot of stopping, starting, teaching during training camp when you're really supposed to be ramping up, and you didn't have this spring session last year to get people comfortable with the offense. Now this just looks like a team that's comfortable with what it's doing out there, and they're able to go through things at kind of slow motion. They're not really running at full speed right now, but it's just a team that knows what they're running. Comfortable with it, while also breaking in some new people that are learning the system as well. And this is what you're supposed to see when you have continuity. And I think that's and honestly, that maybe plays into the fact where we've got to admit, when we're watching this, not a ton of stuff to really talk about. I mean, it's just a team that knows what it's doing, and not a lot of highlights to pull from it, because they're kind of just fine tuning things and kind of gradually working themselves into it at this point, and not having to show us brand new things that we haven't already seen before.
Well, and Anthony Schwartz will talk about it a little bit later, the reps that he's gotten, because there weren't a lot of people here in the first few weeks after the NFL draft. But, you're seeing all the offensive linemen, from a second string, third string standpoint, guys getting first and second string reps. And that can only help, especially on the depth side, in case, God forbid, and let's hope not, because there is a certain element of needing to stay healthy to be successful. But in the event something does happen, it's nice to see some of these guys really getting some much needed reps. We talked about the wide receivers and the running backs, but the offensive linemen here, the backups, really starting to get some good work as well.
Yeah, I've seen a couple guys, and two of them being opt-out guys from last year, and Colby Gossett and Drew Forbes. I mean, you saw a lot of reps for them today out there as well. Rookie James Hudson is someone that really comes to mind that's got to be benefiting from getting out there as well. Nick Harris, the rookie from last year, entering his second season. So yeah, just a ton of good work for these guys, while the starting offensive line, expect them back next week here. But I think that you feel good with what they know and what they can do. But now you're seeing the jockeying for some of these final spots on the offensive line. And we saw how every one of those guys, plus some guys we didn't expect, had to make some contributions to get you into the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, no question about it. All right. After practice, Kevin Stefanski talked with the media. The biggest thing probably to come out of it is we're going to host some joint practices.
It's about time.
I was going to say, when was the last?
About time.
You are the kind of like the resident historian to a certain extent. When's the last time we hosted?
Gibbs, I don't know. I can just tell you it hasn't been since I've worked with the Browns since 2014. And so I think it's been a while. I'll just say it. I'll leave it at that. I think once we saw that it was able to be pulled off in Tampa with their setup, I was like, oh, we can pull this off. Like that logistically, Tampa was not the most conducive to joint practices that you could have had. I'm like, the Browns got this. I think we can go without having to spend a week somewhere in preseason. So good to welcome the Giants here. I think it's something, I think, especially for these coaches that are hankering to make the most out of this training camp compared to last year. I imagine you're going to see a lot of these joint practices throughout the preseason. And to me, it builds up to that. It's always usually that second preseason game anyways, but now this gets into how do you approach this second preseason game? And is this going to be your dress rehearsal, or do you see what the Browns did against the Colts the previous time, where you had a good week of practice, sit all those guys down, let the second and third string guys get the opportunities out there? That'll be interesting strategy. And then going into that Atlanta finale, is that the dress rehearsal, or is that what we came to expect as that fourth preseason game where it's right before roster decision time? A lot for Stefanski to figure out on how he wants to manage it. And honestly, probably not something he's going to line up until he sees what he's got going into some of those games.
Yeah. Also interesting, the preseason schedule out earlier this week. Obviously, game one, taking care of business. We're going to Jacksonville and
Tebow Mania.
A little night game, the debut of Herb. How about a
Yeah.
little Trevor Lawrence? Lots of stories
Yeah.
on that preseason game number one. And then, that game against the Giants, Sunday afternoon at 1:00. I'll take that all day long as opposed to 7:00.
I mean, that's just a perfect welcome back for hopefully what we hope is a full stadium. I mean, beautiful, what you expect, some sunny weather. Like, this is like ideal. Like, let's treat this like a regular season like atmosphere. I think it's a nice little tester for the upcoming season. I like it. I mean, I've never been a part of a 1 p.m. Sunday preseason game, so it's a nice little warm up for the season.
Do you think that's because the league is really trying to get more of these games in the preseason on weekends for more people to attend?
I think, and I mean, this is something that's been happening for the last couple of years. I just don't think the Browns have been included in it. I think that the Colts game a couple of years ago was like a 4 p.m. game, and that felt different. But it's never had this 1 p.m. I just remember there's always been a couple of these sprinkled into the schedule, and we just hadn't been fortunate to receive one up until now.
Yeah, happy to do it. And then we close out the preseason, obviously, with that Sunday night football matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. That could be the dress rehearsal game, could be more of the fourth preseason game, could be a little combination of both. So
whatever it is, I believe it's the last preseason game of 2021 in the NFL.
Yep. And then they'll get 12 days off. They're not going to get 12 days off. It'll be 12 days between that game and their next game. So including the cut down day coming 4 days earlier, which is always a good thing.
Yes.
On that Tuesday. That's a look at some of the stories making news and headlines around the National Football League and with your Cleveland Browns. Right now, it's our interview spotlight, a chance to sit down with Browns wide receiver Anthony Schwartz, third-round pick out of Auburn. Have a watch and have a listen. Here on the best podcast available, happy to be joined by our third-round pick wide receiver out of Auburn, Anthony Schwartz joins us here for a few minutes on the best podcast available with Gibbs and Gribbs. Anthony, a pleasure to have you, man, and welcome. What is this past 6 weeks been like for you?
Thank you for having me on. And these past 6 weeks, I'll say it's been a little just kind of rapid fire, like bang, 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 like coming up for rookie minicamp every day, just learning the playbook. It felt like I was getting a million things thrown at me. But these past 6 weeks have kind of been great for me learning wise. I've been able to kind of learn the base of the offense, learn most of the plays that we've gone through, and become more comfortable with the offense and becoming to understand it more, understanding the why and understanding every position out there. And so it's been a great time, especially like meeting a lot of the guys. They've been good, cool guys, and it's been a great time so far.
What do you like so far about what you've learned about this offense?
I just like the balance of it, and just like how everything is, like how it's all set out to you, how it's easy to like remember. Like they do a lot of keys to remember what you have on this and what you have on that, and just been really just getting back into the huddle. I thought it would be a big struggle with like the play size and like the calls, but it's actually been a little bit easier than I thought it would be.
All right. So Chad O'Shea is your position coach. We love Chad O'Shea on all of our properties. He's a regular on the radio show. He does a lot of things with us, and we are big fans of Chad O'Shea. Is there something that stands out to you that Chad O'Shea, maybe a piece of advice? What's the best piece of advice he's given you since you started up here?
The best advice he's given me is just to know what I'm here for. I'm here to play football, and I'm here to it's just that pretty much. Just here to play football. Don't want to say anything really out the ordinary. Just you're here to do your job. You're here to play football, and you're here to just have a great time.
Anthony, going back to rookie minicamp, it was kind of a unique situation where there were so few guys on the field, but a lot of one-on-one attention you got with the coaches. How beneficial was that period for you? And have you ever been a part of an experience where you're basically one of the only receivers on the field getting reps? And how was that experience for you?
it was great for me just be able to get one-on-one time with Coach O'Shea, and it was just great going through a whole bunch of drills and just improving a lot. I felt like that weekend was one of the best I've ever like improved on day to day to day. And it's just I've never been a part of where it's just one or two receivers out there, and so it was a little bit strange, but at the same time it was great for me because I was able to learn a lot and go through everything. He was able to coach me through each drill and not having to rush everything, just kind of being able to sit there and break it down for me.
Is there one thing that in all the work that you've been doing here recently that you say to yourself, this is something that I've got to work on when camp breaks next week? You know, after mini camp, before we get to training camp and the bullets really start flying, was there something that stands out to you that you really want to work on?
I just want to work on being more consistent in my routes. I feel like I've been getting a lot better with them, feeling a lot more comfortable. Now it's all about just staying in control. And once I get the control down, I feel like I'll be a whole different person from that point.
All right, Anthony, I'm going to go way back on this one with this question, and might make you think hard about it. When did you first realize that you were really, really fast? Like, how long ago did that click for you?
Really, I would say around not even ninth grade, really 10th grade. That's when I ran my fastest times ever at that point. I ran a 10.3 and 10.2 in back-to-back weeks, and that's when I kind of realized I'm fast. I'm pretty fast.
Okay, so if I've got this right, Florida 2A state 100-200 record, youth world record in the 100 in 2017. Is there a record and a lot of other accolades, whether it's from a football side or a track side? Is there one record that stands out that you're most proud of?
I would say it would be between the world youth record and then my the Florida 2A record, because the world youth record, that's something that's around the whole world. Like, it's not just attributed to one part or the other. It's the whole world. It's under 18, and hopefully I can keep it on for this year. It might get broken this year. Got another fast kid out of Florida coming out, but that's one thing about the Florida 2A record. That's just out of all the people that come out of Florida, I just know that I have the record there. It's just insane, and I hope that it stays for a long time.
Did you have a coach or two that was frustrated that this wasn't the path you wanted to go, though, full-time track? I mean, because you obviously chose football. I mean, did people try to tug you in the other direction with this stuff?
There was a little bit, like, people on the track side just saying that, you're really good at this if you keep on going, and here you can possibly make an Olympic team. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good and all, but like my first, like if I stick to playing football, I can make it to the NFL, which has been my dream since I was a kid. And so, it just came to that point where my love for football was just was more than my love for track. And I decided to take that path. And obviously it's taking me to this point. Hopefully it can take me a lot further.
Is there a favorite football player that you had growing up? Someone that you like to model your game after?
Not really model my game after, but my favorite football player growing up was Randy Moss. He was just a dominant, like complete beast. And then a little bit later, it was Calvin Johnson, Megatron, and just pretty much for the same reason I love Randy Moss. Like, he's just a beast out there, dominating, no one can stop them. And I don't have the same like play style as them because those are big 6'5" receivers, but I want to have the same mentality, want to have that same presence on the field where I get on the field and I want to dominate.
And that's the thing, you've talked a lot about how you don't want to be just known as a speed guy. Like, how seriously have you taken just all the nuances of being a wide receiver, and how much further do you think you have to go in that area?
I take it really seriously. It's one of those things that I pride myself on, becoming an actual wide receiver and not just being the quote unquote speed guy, track guy, because I feel that's just disrespectful to me, because I've worked all my life to get to this point, and just to be labeled as a one-trick pony, it just feels like disrespectful to me. So I take pride in working on that. I take pride in just becoming that full receiver. And I still have a lot of ways to go, just like everyone else does, but I feel like I'm on the right track as of right now.
You've come from a pretty impressive tree of coaches from high school, Patrick Surtain, obviously in college with Gus and, the success that you guys had at Auburn. What is Kevin Stefanski? What's your biggest takeaway from Kevin Stefanski?
Really, that he's a down to earth guy. Like he's out there with us all the time. I've seen him in the morning, like just watching our lifts and sometimes getting lifts with us. But at the end of the day, he's also a guy of hard work, and he prides himself on hard work. And that's good for me because I've always been a hard worker. I've always prided myself on that. And that's why I really like Coach Stefanski a lot.
And you've gotten to know a guy like Jarvis pretty well here. What about his mentality have you loved getting to know and being able to soon share the field with him?
I love his dog mentality. Like that's just because I've been watching since he was on the Dolphins, and he's been a dog since then. He's been a dog since college, really. And so just seeing his dog mentality and how he carries himself is just amazing to see. Because I feel like I carry that same mindset where I want to beat the guy in front of me every time. I want to dominate. And then just seeing how he works too. He's always serious in his work, but he's not the type that he'll teach me, like he'll help me with like what I need to do. Like if it's on the field, he'll like see what I'm doing and just say what I can do to get better and say what I can do to improve myself.
Talking with Anthony Schwartz, our 3rd round pick, wide receiver out of Auburn. All right, you're in the huddle. Play comes through. Is there one play that you just get super excited about when your number's called that you've got to almost keep it in? You're so excited to run a play. Is there a favorite play in the Anthony Schwartz playbook?
There's been a few plays that I've really liked enjoying, and then I love when I hear it called because I know it's getting to me, and I know it's one of the best things I do too. And so I know when it's called that I'm gonna be ready, and I'm gonna just show out and show what I can do.
Anthony, what did playing in the SEC do to get you ready for the NFL?
Really what it does is playing in the SEC, you play against NFL talent every week. No matter if it's the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ole Misses, the Mississippi States, just every team has a whole bunch of NFL quality players. And especially playing against those teams like Alabama and Georgia, they pretty much have NFL rosters. So going against those guys it just helps you get prepared for that next level, and then shows that if you can dominate in the SEC, that means the NFL won't be easy, but you'll have an easier transition than most. I would feel like.
Toughest place to play in the SEC?
I would say it's either between Jordan Hare or the Swamp.
So I've been to all of them, Anthony. So I've got to ask you though, what did any place catch you off guard when you were going in the SEC? The stuff you heard from fans or just the atmosphere? Did any wow factor down there?
I will say I was surprised by how loud Georgia would get.
I gotcha.
At Stanford.
There you go. Okay. Are you on a roller coaster aficionado? Do I have that correct?
Yeah, you have that 100% correct. I love roller coasters.
All right. And I feel like you're going to be the new spokesperson for Cedar Point before it's all said and done. What best roller coaster at Cedar Point, in your opinion?
Oh, Steel Vengeance all the way.
Really?
No question.
Why?
It's just that's something that you don't see anything like that, like ever. I've never been on any ride like that. It's just I was out of my seat pretty much half the time, and it's just all the I can't even explain it. Just like all the things you do in the coaster. Just I've never done anything like that on any other ride, and it's just insane to see.
What about Top Thrill or Millennium Force?
I'll say Millennium Force is better than Top Thrill. Top Thrill, it's a great ride. Of course, that launches like nothing else. But Millennium Force are just like, it's a longer coaster than me. And so I can appreciate the length it's going and then how fast it's going throughout its whole layout.
So Anthony, have you already found time to get there since you've been drafted, or had you been there before?
I've never been there before. And then coming up here, I had a few weekends where we were off for an extended period of time. And so I was able to go out there. I've been there 2 times so far.
So what's the backstory? There's got to be like, as a kid, was there like a first experience that got you hooked on this stuff?
It's just like growing up, I always went to like either Disney World or Universal every year. And so when you go to university, you see the Hulk out there. You see back in the day when Dueling Dragons was there. And like, I'm like, Mom, I really want to go on those, but I was too small. And so like, when then you go to Disney, you go on Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, Rock and Roller Coaster. And that's those still are some of my favorite rides to this day. But I kind of started from there and it built on, and where now I want to pretty much go on every roller coaster I see.
All right. So big roller coaster aficionado. YouTube channel now? YouTube channel in play?
Yeah, I started up a YouTube channel. My first vlog was comparing Kings Island and Cedar Point, so I was able to go to both of them. And I'm not gonna give no spoilers away, but you can watch the video on my YouTube channel. It's just Anthony Schwartz, and yeah, it's a pretty good channel. I got a lot more things coming soon on that channel.
Good.
And Anthony, I know you worked with some of my former colleagues at AL.com on the behind the scenes stuff before the draft. What was it like opening people up to that experience? And what's it like now that you'll always forever have that documented, no matter how old you get? That'll always be videotaped of what you went through these last few months.
I think it was great, honestly, just because people get to see my story, hear my story, and just so like kind of helps me open up to other people who might not know me. You might just think, who might have one opinion of me and just didn't know the true me or what I've been doing. And maybe people that thought I was just like didn't come from like what they thought I came from, or just stuff like that. It just was great just getting my story out there and showing people the real me.
And I'll just ask this last one: when you're sitting there nervous, waiting for you to get drafted, are you even thinking that the cameras are even there, or are you so locked into the moment that you didn't even you forgot they were even there?
I'm so locked into the moments that like I didn't really like notice that I didn't do anything like like for show. Like everything I did on there was just 100% me. Like and even when I knew they were there, like they were working and stuff, I just didn't want to put on a show. I wanted to just be me, because you can only be true to yourself, and that's what I feel like was to show was how like I actually am.
Sounds like someone who came from a pretty special family as well. I know a couple sisters and a pretty loving family, man. We appreciate it, and congratulations on everything that you've got so far, and a lot of work to go before we report to training camp at the end of July, but we appreciate your time and we wish you all the best. And here's hoping you get a few more roller coasters in before we get to training camp, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Special thanks to Anthony Schwartz for his time. A great young man, super fast. We know about the speed. Obviously, he knows what he's got to work on from a route running standpoint, and that continues to progress. And Gribbs, another guy that really could get some meaningful snaps at some point here for this football team in 2021.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty, not to pat ourselves on the back here, but this is a pretty ideal situation for him to kind of find himself in, because it's a combination of you're going into an offense like with Kevin Stefanski's that obviously gets the most out of their wide receivers and has what you would see as like an opportunity for him to help right away. This team needs more downfield speed, needs to be able to stretch the field a little bit more. Was clearly an area of weakness in the second half of the season, even though the offense was humming in all other facets. That's the good thing. Also, on the flip side, he's not being thrown into a situation where he's just going to be handed a pretty significant role. I think that he's going to be able to work on the things he needs to work on, develop, and the Browns don't need to rely on him to be taking 40, 50 snaps a game. You've got 4 or 5 guys coming back that have some major experience, including 2 perennial Pro Bowlers in Landry and Beckham. So, I mean, like, this is a best of both worlds where he can find maybe a situational role while grooming himself to one day become a guy that's on the field most snaps for you.
Yeah, definitely a guy to watch, especially as we get into mandatory minicamp next week. And then obviously as we get into training camp. Mandatory minicamp is next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Players will come in on Monday. They'll get their physicals, go through the team meeting portion, kind of get an idea of what the schedule is going to look like for the week. And then on the field Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then dismissed for summer vacation. Gribbs, what are you looking forward to seeing from this full squad workout next week?
But first, I just want to see the whole team together, and I think that's the one thing that you're seeing bits and pieces. We've gotten a nice little buildup. It was rookies, then it was most of the defense, and it's nice little gradual buildup to seeing all 90 of the guys together. And then I just want to see what it looks like in terms of what's going to be the focus, especially with the 11 on 11. You want to make the most of the time you get out there, but again, it's still not pads. You're not going to be doing full football things, but will there be some full speed work? Well, what kind of stuff will you be working on? And then for me, it's just how are you looking defensively right away when you've got all your guys here? Who's lining up first? Who's going to have to earn their spots, or that you think might be starters, but they start as second or third team guys? I mean, that's how those orders look and how they operate as a team for those 3 days here.
Yeah, I think that will be fascinating to watch, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Is there a position or a player, I'll throw that in there too, that you're most interested in looking at and getting a better idea of?
Well, I think offensively, I'm just curious to see where Odell Beckham is at right now. I think we've seen the Instagram videos. I think we've seen a lot. I don't think we're expecting him to be like full go out there. I mean, you don't need to see it, but I just want to see where he's at. Is he going to be doing stuff like Grant Delpit has been kind of working in and out, things like that? Just see where he is along there, and just like to hear from him for the first time since suffering that injury way back in the middle of last season. And then defensively, obviously the defensive tackle competition is maybe the most open, but I don't know if I could safely project a locked in starter, maybe outside of Anthony Walker in that linebacker. I think that is as wide open as you can get. And I think with the nature of what you're able to do in minicamp, you can learn a lot from the linebackers, maybe more so than you're going to learn from the defensive tackles. You're not doing goal line drills. You're not doing running drills during minicamp. So I think that we'll learn a little bit of where that pecking order is with the linebackers, and really where the guys fit in at certain spots. Because again, I know Anthony Walker is going to be in the middle somewhere. Outside that, I can't tell you where those other guys are lining up.
It will be fascinating to also see. I know we're not tackling. I know we're not in pads, but early on, how that wide receiver versus the new revamped secondary looks.
Yeah.
You know, especially Denzel seems to be playing at a pretty high level right now. You know, Troy Hill's going to find his way. Greg Newsome, they're going to test. Is Baker going to go at him right away? I think it's something to watch next week in preparation for those training camp days that are coming a lot quicker than maybe we all want them to, especially on the back end of things and all the work that's being done behind the scenes. So it's going to be great, but there's going to be a lot thrown at those guys next week. For everybody to be in the building, coaches know you've got 72 hours maybe with them. A lot is going to be thrown at them, not just on the football field, but in meetings galore, I would think.
Yeah, and you've seen some teams have already wrapped up their mini camps, and because a lot of teams have approached this part of the offseason differently. I saw earlier today the Texans just scrapped mini camp completely. So the Browns are full steam ahead with what they're going to do here, and I think it'll just be good to see guys back. Really, the first Kevin Stefanski mini camp, and seeing what that looks like, and getting them ready, and knowing that come to end of July, I mean, that's when this gets real, and that's when the competition's really going to go to another level, because this is a lot of talent on a team that's got to be limited down to 53 players. Yeah,
and you'll have 3 cut down days. You cut 5 spots after that first game, a cut down after that second game, and then the big cut down from I think it's 80 to 53 in that final week of the preseason, as we like to call it. So a lot still to be determined, and a lot to look forward to, especially next week. Again, we'll have complete mini camp coverage on the best podcast available, player interviews, maybe a coach interview thrown in there for you, as well as Agura, Donovan. We're going to throw everything at you. It's our last episode before we go on summer vacation for a few weeks, and looking forward to getting some downtime to recharge the batteries before training camp begins. Thanks to Jeff McDaniel for all of his hard work. Thanks to Anthony Schwartz for his time. For Andrew Gribble, I'm Jason Gibbs. Make sure you like and subscribe today to the best podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/Browns. For Gribbs, I'm Gibbs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the best podcast available.